My name is Jason.
And my name is David.
And this is a comic strip AP of Dungeon World featuring the story of Domenico Castafiel. And when we last saw Domenico, he was at the Bottomless Tankard pub in their back room, parlaying, so to speak, with a boy who was guarding the trapdoor entrance to a stairway that goes down to a subterranean hive of scum and villainy called the Black Nest. You had been informed, Domenico, that you were required to give the boy a poem about darkness and evil. I should mention, this is actually a custom move, okay? It's a charisma-based custom move. Once you do the poem, you're going to roll plus charisma. And on 10 plus, the boy likes your poem and considers you sufficiently evil so as not to bother you anymore. On a 7 to 9, he considers you sufficiently evil to let into the Black Nest, but he may try to fuck with you later on because he might think you're a chump, okay?
Okay.
So let's hear the poem first.
So I step back from the boy and I look down at the ground and think for a few minutes, and then I step back up. And without meeting his eyes, I recite the following. A mother dies, but does not die. Her son, he doth watch her cry. As he binds her with a chain, her shrieks do not wane, till months do pass, and this wretched rasp her voice can no longer sustain.
Roll plus charisma?
Yeah, that's a 6.
The boy cocks his head, considers your poem, asks you to read it one more time, just to make sure he's got all the details, and we'll say you do. And then he starts to seize up, like tighten up a little bit. You see his little hands balling up into fists, and you can see his forearms and shoulders and legs start to quaver, and he clenches his teeth and his eyes roll into the back of his head, and he starts to make this noise like so he relaxes and opens his eyes and smiles and says, "I'm just joking. That was a great poem." He takes out his keys and he puts them into the, there's like a padlock on the trapdoor, and you hear him kind of like, jangling the keys around, and you hear a little chunk chunk as he unlocks the padlock and tosses it off, and he hauls up the trapdoor. There's a creak of wood and iron, right? And you see what appears to be a ladder that goes down. And he says, "Enjoy your journey into the Black Nest." What do you do?
I just keep my eyes kind of on him out of the corner as I try not to look at him but can't help but stare at him and climb on down.
Yeah, and you climb down to the ladder, and the ladder goes to a landing, which itself goes to a set of roughly hewn stone stairs that kind of descend down into the beneath the city. We'll get to that in a second. But it was entirely beyond your comprehension, but I'm going to do a little off-screen here. As you were climbing down into the ladder, there was a little flutter at the end of your cloak, and something fell off the end of your cloak, and you didn't notice it. You descended down, but the boy noticed it. And as he reached down to investigate it, he sees that it's like a maggot the size of a human fist. Okay, a big white, slick maggot with a little teeny tiny human face. And the boy's eyes go wide, and we don't really see what happens after that, except maybe in a flash cut, we just see the boy standing there entranced as the little maggot creature worms its way into his mouth and down his throat. But we'll cut back to you. So, down to the Black Nest. You go down these steps. They get increasingly more roughly hewn as you go down. Like they're kind of masoned in the beginning, but the further you go down, they become rougher and rougher. And then they lead ultimately to a landing, which is just a little small alcove space that itself opens up into this, I guess it's kind of a grotto or like an underground cave. There's a waterway that goes through it, right? And you see a couple of streets along either side of this waterway, kind of oily black ramshackle houses, kind of like piled up on top of one another on these streets. You see a few people milling around here and there, and there are lanterns lit here and there that kind of cast an orange glow over everything. As we're making our way through the Black Nest, I want to paint a picture for the listeners of how this is, a hive of scum and villainy. This is a bad place, right? This is where bad people go to do bad things. And I thought we would just kind of parry back and forth for a second, each of us describing a few little details of things that, for your end, things that Domenico sees, and then I'll just kind of add in my own details as well. Things that you see, Domenico, that let you know this is a bad place. Give me one detail.
As I'm passing down the street, I look to my right, and I see a skinny, shifty man paying another man, and he seems desperate for something. And after he pays the man, a curtain behind him opens, and these two giant arachnid appendages come and pull him slightly back. And then the two spiders' fangs pierce his neck, and he has a look of rapture and ecstasy.
Nice. And as you're kind of worming your way down the streets, you'll see vendors selling things like roasted rat on a stick, dog brains, flayed cat, that kind of thing. What else do you see?
I'm walking and look to my left, and there is a band of rough-looking little children that are playing a card game, and then clearly one of them loses, and the rest of them hold him down, and they're like, nope, you bet it, and then they break his leg.
Mushroom growing is very popular in the Black Nest, and you'll see several people have their own little mushroom gardens of various varieties. Most of them sort of sickly colors, like pale, sort of malodorous greens and yellows and purples, that kind of thing. And as you pass by, some of the mushrooms even quiver a little bit and release some spores, and you get some in your mouth, and you have to kind of cough. You kind of cough them out, and it's quite filthy. So I guess my question for you, Domenico, is this is not a safe place, okay? What's your approach here? You just kind of, you've been here before. Are you scared of like what might happen to you down here? Are you concerned about pickpockets? Do you know where you're going? Like, what's your plan?
I'm going to Mhaug's. I've been there before, so I know the way. And really, in most major cities, the safest place to be is in the main thoroughfare, but that's not the case down here. Down here, the safest place to be is unnoticed and moving through the back alleys. So I'm just kind of making a zigzagging way through the narrowest, smallest corridors where hopefully no one will notice.
That's good. You get to Mhaug's. Yeah, her place is hard to miss because she has the goods, so to speak, hanging up just outside the shop. And the goods are a number of naked fresh corpses hanging by their necks as if by nooses, but hanging by their necks in front of the door, completely shaven of hair, and their heads lolled to the side and eyes bugged out. It's an interesting sight. You might see, maybe as you're approaching, you see a couple of withered, pale-skinned men in black robes walk up and sort of examine the business a little bit, right? Check the muscle tone of these corpses hanging from her little porch. Feel around, make sure they've still got all their guts, that kind of thing, right? And they seem disinterested, kind of shrug their shoulders and move on. What do you do?
I'm gonna go in and approach Mhaug.
You step inside. The first thing that hits you is the smell, okay? Mhaug's, it's a strong, like, chemical smell, okay? Very, very powerful. Like, it makes you even a little woozy, right? There are more bodies hanging from the ceiling in this little space. Her workspace and her business space, it's all the same. It's one big room. Very, rickety wooden floors. The beams, some of the beams look like they're kind of like a little bowed because of all the bodies hanging from them, right? Just kind of like smashed together, like, like when you go to the dry cleaners, like all the done dry cleaned clothes just pressed together really tightly. It's like that, right? And just beyond the curtain of dangling legs and genitals, you see Mhaug at her table with a body laid out on the slab. Mhaug is medium height, wears sort of like ragged black and gray, robes, frizzy gray hair, very old. And she looks up at you. She's got like a kind of a pop eye, one of her eyes is squinted closed and one's popped out really, really wide. And she says, "Oh, you got business? You got business with Mhaug, huh?"
Yes, I do. It seems I need the help of a skilled necromancer.
She scrambles from behind her work table over towards you, and she stretches out her sort of like gnarled hands and begins to like squeeze and clutch at your arms and legs and feel the fine quality of the cloth that you wear. And she says, "Oh, you're a very, very pretty young man, aren't you? Very pretty. Yes. It's too bad you're still alive. I could get a really, really good price for you." And she's kind of drags her fingernails across your cheek, feeling its smoothness. What do you do?
Letting her caress my skin, I finish saying the spell that I've been muttering under my breath as I got closer and deeper into her lair, and I'm going to try and charm her.
Oh, nice. Go ahead and cast it.
7. I'll forget the spell.
Okay, cool. How does the charm work? What does it look like on screen?
So it requires physical contact, which she has managed on her own.
Helpfully supplied, yes.
But it's just a last bit of whispering as I finish the spell under my breath, and then I look at her, and her eyes meet mine, both of them. Her squinty one kind of opens a little wider, and her bugging one is just completely out of her head. And then they kind of glaze over a little bit, and she gives a little smile.
She says, "Oh, I remember you. Yes. Come, please. Come in a little further. I was just about to have tea. Perhaps you'd like to join me?"
Nothing would make me happier, old friend.
Hi, this is Jason from the Gauntlet Gaming Community. If you enjoyed this episode of Comic Strip AP, please consider supporting the Gauntlet on Patreon. Our page can be found at patreon.com/gauntlet.